Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, creepy horror and men's adventure. It's my weekly wrap-up. So, 5 books to talk to you about today. I finished 5 things this week, albeit a couple of them I had given kind of initial thoughts on last week because I was reading them when I filmed this video last week. I also wanted to talk quickly about my Read What You Own challenge because I always forget to update on that in these videos. So I am now 29 books through my second Read What You Own challenge. If you don't know what that is, I'm reading 100 books I already own before I can buy any new ones. With a load of caveats, so I can take books out of the library and things like that for reading events and buddy reads and things like that. And that has definitely slowed me down this time. The first time I did it for this kind of year, so I did it from November and finished at the end of January, so I got through it really quickly first time around. I then, at the beginning of February or towards the end of January, started it again, and here we are in April, and I'm only 29 books through, so it's definitely taking me longer. And indeed, 2 of the things I'm reading at the moment, only 1 of those will count. So I think I do need to think about it a bit because I'm not feeling the weight of not buying new books. I'm not feeling like I need to buy new books at all. But equally, I don't like doing challenges for too long, so I do kind of want to finish it. So I need to think about how I can pick up the pace a little bit, I think. Anyway, I will talk about the 5 books I've finished this week, talk about what I'm reading at the moment, and then talk about what's been on the channel and what I think is going to be on the channel in the week ahead. That kind of forward schedule can vary a bit if other things come up, but we'll see. Right, so what have I finished this week? So the 2 things I was reading when I filmed this last week were The Win Through the Keyhole by Stephen King was one of them. So finished this. I did give some thoughts on this in a video I put up during the last week where I talked about the Dark Tower series as a whole. So this is a novel set in the Dark Tower universe that King created, but not necessarily strictly part of the original Dark Tower series. So there's 7 books in that series. This book fits in kind of midway through, but was published after the rest of the books. So it's more like a way for King to revisit the characters and the setting of the books rather than part of the overall narrative. I enjoyed this a lot. So there's effectively 3 different parts to this book, which are nested within each other like Russian dolls. So the kind of wraparound is like the main characters from the Dark Tower series kind of travelling and stopping for the night, and Roland the gunslinger telling stories to the other characters. The first of those stories then is about him as a young man travelling with one of his companions to investigate some mysterious deaths. So it kind of has a nice detective story vibe to it. And then within that you get a more fantasy type of story, a kind of fairy tale-ish vibe kind of a story. That was the one I enjoyed the least. I enjoyed the detective story part of it, and it was fun revisiting the characters as well. So overall I really like this, but I did feel that kind of the central story, which is itself called The Win Through the Keyhole, I thought that dragged a little bit, if I'm honest. So I finished that. Also finished The Vinyl Detective Low Action by Andrew Cartmel. So this is just a really fun British kind of cosy-ish mystery. So from a series of books, the Vinyl Detective series, about a guy who finds rare records for people and also investigates crimes. So in this one, he's looking for the lost first pressing of an LP by a female punk band called the Blue Tits, and also investigating threats of murder and indeed attempts of murder against the lead singer of the band. So a really fun book, as all of these books are. I've recently found out Cartmel's got another series which, by the sound of it, is very similar, where the central character, rather than hunting for rare records, hunts for rare books. I think it's called The Paperback Sleuth, that series. So I definitely need to get some of those because they sound like I will enjoy them even more than the Vinyl Detective series. But the Vinyl Detective series is just fun. They're just nice mysteries, really good, like persistent central cast of characters who you really feel like you get to know. There's nice banter between the characters and things like that. They're just a good, fun time. They're nice characters to hang out with. And the stories, like the mysteries in the stories are decent. They're enjoyable. And Cartmel does a great job of, just kind of creating characters in an entertaining way. The series of books has always reminded me of the kind of detective show you get over here in the UK on like a Sunday evening. I think they'd make a great, you could do a great TV show out of these books. Anyway, so yes, finished both of those. Then read for my Patreon and YouTube channel members book club, The Ritual by Adam Nevill, which I really enjoyed. So I don't normally do review videos on the channel for books we do that we read for our book club. I do like exclusive like vlog videos where I record my thoughts of the book as I am reading it. But this one I've got quite a lot to say about, and I do want to do a full kind of standard review of it. So that hopefully will go up on the channel in the week ahead. So yeah, a really, really interesting book, really creepy and tense, like incredibly tense horror story about these four guys who were friends at university and now middle-aged, who go to Scandinavia for like a kind of camping and hiking trip. There's loads of tensions between the different characters, and there's loads of like horror stuff as well. So gradually they get picked off by this mysterious thing within the woods where they're hiking. So I enjoyed this a lot. Really creepy, really gripping, and just a really solid horror read. I definitely need to read more Adam Nevill. I've only read one other book by him so far, which is Cunning Folk. I do have his latest book to read, which he very kindly sent me a copy of, so I need to get to that soon because this was fantastic. Then read a couple of men's adventure books. So I read The Executioner Book 22, Hawaiian Hellground by Don Pendleton. This was great. I think this might be my favourite in the series so far. It was really, really entertaining. So in this one, Mac Bolan again goes up against the mafia, but also goes up against this rogue Chinese general. So there's a bit of a kind of mix-up, or a bit of a refresh, I suppose, of the villains that Mac Bolan is going up against. But you've also got a load of characters from previous books who make a reappearance in this one. So Pendleton does that quite often. There are kind of persistent characters who crop up every so often, but this one felt like it had more of those characters in one book than ever before. It was almost like a kind of greatest hits, and they all do interesting stuff. So yeah, really fun read. Had some great action sequences, including a stupendous sequence where Bolan goes in on a hang glider and attacks this like the Chinese general's compound, which was just phenomenal. So yeah, really, really solidly entertaining 70s trash. I enjoyed it a lot. And then also enjoyed a lot The Survivalist Book 13, Pursuit by Jerry Ahern. So this one has John Rourke, the survivalist, and his family. So I think, I'm trying to remember exactly what happens. I think his daughter gets kidnapped by this guy. She then gets rescued by someone who is an Icelandic Viking, and it turns out that Iceland was somehow like saved from the apocalypse and has kind of been continuing as a society. So yeah, it's got everything, this book. It had, near the start, it had the sequence where Rourke and a load of the other characters were all driving around in what are described as mini tanks, like fighting people, and then you've got Icelandic Vikings as well. So what more could you want from a book? Really, really entertaining. Enjoyed that a lot. So that's what I finished this week. I'm currently reading two things. So I'm participating in Old School April, the kind of nostalgic readathon created by Kelsey from the channel Slime and Slashers. One of the books I'm reading for that, and the beauty of Old School April is you can read basically anything for it. There's prompts and you get points. You can score points for how many prompts you hit on a book and things like that. This one I'm definitely reading specifically for Old School April though. It's If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor by Bruce Campbell, which is just really great so far. So this, like, Bruce Campbell is an actor I associate very much with my teenage years. So in particular, Evil Dead 2 was a movie that me and my friends at school watched again and again. This was back when The Evil Dead was still banned in the UK on home video, although we did manage to procure copies of it through various means. But Evil Dead 2 wasn't banned, and we watched that and loved it and like quoted it to each other and stuff like that. Such a great fun movie. And Bruce Campbell just comes across as just a likeable guy who feels very blessed to have managed to have made a career for himself, just goofing off basically. So it's really entertaining. In particular, the introduction to this book, which is written by Sam Raimi, or foreword rather than introduction. So foreword by Sam and Ivan Raimi is one of the funniest things I've ever read. It was so good. So yeah, I really recommend this if you're a fan of the Evil Dead films. I'm about a third of the way through, and I've just got up to the bit where they are about to start filming the Evil Dead. So it's a book that's packed with like pictures and things like that, as you can see. So yeah, a really interesting. So it's a fun book about just Bruce Campbell's life. And what he's like as a person, but also a really interesting book about low budget filmmaking, which is something I've always been interested in. So yeah, enjoying that a lot. And then also started this morning, Strangers When We Meet by Evan Hunter, aka Ed McBain, my favourite author. So I'm doing a buddy read of this with MJ from the channel Reading This Life. So this originally came out in '58. So this is early on in Hunter's career. After the first few 87th Precinct books had been published, so he was starting to make his name as a crime writer, but was also trying to write more literary kind of stuff under the name Evan Hunter. This definitely feels a bit more literary. It's a little bit pretentious, I think, and I'm trying to figure out how old Hunter would have been when he wrote this. I can't remember when he was born. Does it say? No. So he was probably in his late 20s, early 30s. And this is a book about affairs, basically. And Hunter was someone who was, well, I think he had about 5 or 6 wives in the end. So I'm guessing that at least some of those divorces that led to other wives were because of philandering on his part. So it feels like there might be a bit of self-reflection in this book. But it's enjoyable so far. The dialogue, as always, with Hunter is great, and there are just pages where all you get is dialogue and it just flows beautifully. So yeah, enjoying it so far. I'm only about 10% of the way through, but yeah, seems like an interesting book, and nice to read one of his older books that isn't a crime novel. So yes, that's what I'm reading at the moment, those two things. I'll probably get those finished. I hopefully will get the Bruce Campbell book finished this weekend. Strangers When We Meet, I'm pacing myself a little bit to keep pace with MJ as I'm doing it as a buddy read, but I'll finish that at some point. I'm not sure what I'm going to read after that. I think I quite fancy this, actually. So this is another one I pulled out for Old School April. I've had this for a while. A viewer very kindly sent me a copy of it. This is The Shadow Glass by, who's it by? Josh Winning, which is a kind of fantasy horror novel about spooky puppets and things like that. So yeah, do fancy giving this a try. So I think that might be what I read next. So that's the book stuff done then. So in terms of channel stuff, so in the last week you've had my review of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, which I've mentioned. I did a book haul video. I did the Off the Top of Your Head book tag video. And I did a video with some advice for like new booktubers or booktubers who are struggling a bit to keep their channels going, which hopefully people have found useful. In the week ahead then, I'm going to do my review of the the Big Me Inknote Colour Plus, which was a colour e-reader or colour e-ink device rather than e-reader, because it runs Android, so you can run any sort of apps on it, but it's got an e-ink screen. So that was sent to me very kindly by the company who produced it, Big Me, a while ago. So I'm going to do a review of that. I'm going to do an announcement video for a horror event taking place in May. It's the 3rd time this event has run, I think. So you can probably figure out what it is if you've been watching the channel for a while. So watch out for an announcement video for that. I'm going to do the Courtier Crisis book tag, which is kind of an annual tradition. So I've done that every year that I've been running the channel. So I'm going to do that again. And then, as I said, also going to do a review of Ritual by Adam Nevill. So yes, that's what I've been reading this week. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of the things I talked about. Let me know what you've been reading. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.